On today's episode, we talk about the multi-passioned path.
We talk about perceptions of success and we share insights into our own journeys of being multi-passionate people.
Enjoy the episode.
Hello and welcome to Stay Sparked. We are longtime friends here to share conversations that are aimed to light you up. I'm BETSY FINKLEHOO, the creator of the Power Affirmation Journal, somatic body worker, friend to many, dancer, visionary, artist, healer, and love ambassador.
I am John HALCYON Stin. I am the host of the Hug Nation YouTube channel, as well as a podcaster, a bio dad, a romantic partner, a philanthropist, and also a love ambassador. Oh, and a lifestyle artist.
Lifestyle artist, me too.
Yeah.
Yes, I am a space alchemist also.
Oh.
Yes, and so much more. We always love starting with gratitude. And today, my gratitude is for the garden I'm tending to right now. I just planted some flowers, some dahlias, some herbs. It's springtime and the soil is so rich. And I got out early today, got my hands in the dirt. And I'm just so grateful to be able to have a beautiful garden to tend. And also getting to do it with my love, which is really, really lighting my heart up.
Oh,
Yeah.
gardening, was my first spirituality. I get so much out of watching things grow and the cycles. So, although that is not today's gratitude, although I'm always grateful. My gratitude
Mhm.
today is for my brother. I've had a few opportunities in the last week to be funny with him. We did some improving for a video on a green screen that was so fun, and we recorded a new episode of our other podcast, Hard on the 80s, where we talked about the classic 80 movies, Airplane. And just having someone in my life that is so aligned with my humor and such a just it's I just feel so grateful to have a partner in this life that makes me laugh so much.
Yay, you're so fun. I'm excited to start us off, just going deeper into this conversation about our multifaceted expressions of self, the multi-passioned path, if you will, as you so beautifully stated and shared in a recent post. And so today, our conversation is really about that. We are both on this very dynamic um, path of sharing our gifts with the world. And recently, John Halcyon posted something so beautiful about it. You posted about all the diversity of who you are and reflected so beautifully on it that it actually inspired this conversation. And so I'd love to see if you want to kind of spark us off on where the inspiration came from that post. Maybe tell some of the viewers or listeners um, about the post and get us started.
Sure. Yeah, I think I look back at my identity over the last 20, 25 years and the way I've been feeling lately and realize that years ago, especially when I was fresh into the Burning Man and had been awoken to the idea of radical self-expression and the idea that art is far more than just painting and sculpture. And in that era of my life, I really woke up to this idea that I'm an artist in everything I do. And I'm gonna claim that boldly and say that I am a lifestyle artist. The way I live is my art. And even I had business cards, that's what it said. It said lifestyle artist. And this was, the late 90s, early 2000s, and I was boldly sharing all aspects of my life as if it was, you know, my world was a gallery. And, and at the time, people considered it to be pretty self-absorbed, like as I was putting online this early internet, most people were not online, and I was sharing my life and my interests and my whatever's going on in my head and photos of me. And the pretty much universal response was, "Whoa, dude, you are full of yourself." And so it was this bold artistic statement, like, "Well, I am celebrating my life as art." And then over the next chapter of our world, it became universal. Everybody was sharing their life. Everybody was sharing aspects of it. And so um my identity as a lifestyle artist kind of it felt less strong. It felt less like it was something that I was doing boldly, and more that it was what it meant to be alive and connected in a social media world. And then as social media became, kind of commonplace and a part of really professional needs. Like if you're a professional, you kind of have to start sharing aspects of your life and to be competitive and get attention, and everyone's not fighting for eyeballs. And and so this old feeling I had of follow your muse and be the art and live creatively, it started to get all those pressures of a marketing based commercial world. And so the sharing of your life and your art, it started to get constrained in a way of like, do it correctly, get the most views, maximize your business. And I started to feel, without really realizing it, that I was failing. I was doing a poor job. I was not dedicating myself well enough to a specific branded, you know, avenue of marketing to succeed in this new world. And and so kind of remembering how it started, and remembering that, wait a minute, maybe the goal is not to figure out what product to sell, but maybe the goal is to follow the muse and go back to being a lifestyle artist. And so maybe I'm not failing at marketing. Maybe I'm succeeding at being a lifestyle artist. And that just like I felt like this massive release inside me, this letting go of judgment to return to the idea of like, oh, maybe just let it happen. Maybe that's success.
Yes, beautiful. And then the box around you starts to dissolve,
Right.
right? And there's this more expansive possibility around who you actually are and who you get to be in this world, not to try to fit into a box. Because yeah, this
Yeah.
this world that we live in is so many boxes that we put ourselves in. And so yeah, when you were speaking, I just saw this like expansion within your field, and the identity of who you are and what you represent is so different than the, typical one type of identity. And so I really celebrate that. And your contemplation has really opened up my own personal contemplation around the multi-dimensional being that I am as well. And there was quite some time where I thought that I had to fit into a box, and I thought that I had to let my career be only single pointed focus. Otherwise, I might not be respected.
Hmm.
And I really tried to fit into that box, but I actually started to realize that that was setting me up to go towards burnout. Because as my earliest career path is massage therapist, I went to massage school when I was 22, and I knew going into it that it was not a career that has longevity. Typically, most massage therapists will burn out their bodies after like 15, 20 years of doing it consistently and steadily. And so for me, after about 5 years of doing it, I started to tune into certain aspects of myself that were not being expressed because I was only putting so much energy into becoming a massage therapist that I missed being an artist. And I realized, like, wow, I actually need to have multi paths for my expression. And so that was when I started to make clothing, and I became an upcycling artist, cutting up clothes and teaching people how to cut up clothes and just transforming style, and really got to become a clothing designer for some time while also doing massage therapy. And those two paths together worked really well for me because I was able to have my massage therapy practice balanced out with an artistic expression, and they both were harmonious, but they didn't kind of overlap. And that was the first time I started to see like, oh, I can actually do multiple things. And then over the years, I started to consider all these different parts of who I am that wants to be shared and be in service. And so I was writing down all these different things that I am. And a lot of times people don't even really know what I am or who I am, and they might just make up an idea of what they see on social media. But I wrote down, I am a virtual teacher. I'm a flow artist. I'm a muse. I'm a burner. I'm an artist of multi mediums. I'm a healer. I am a space holder. I am a writer. I'm a crystal collector. I am becoming a plant whisperer. I am a friend, first and foremost. That is my dharma. I know that for sure, that even though I don't get paid to be a friend, it is my dharma and my path. And I weave that into everything that I get to do. And
Mm.
it feels really important to be able to honor and accept so many different roles that I play and not try to downplay some of them in order to appease a certain identity for my career path to
Yeah.
succeed.
Yeah. I think like when somehow you phrase something in terms like it worked out, or and I think that it's tempting to get narrow focused on what success is. And, anytime I've gone to have a life coach or a success-based coaching, they look at my interests and all the places I put my attention. I've got a homeless charity. I do live broadcasts. I've got a YouTube channel. I do coaching. And every time they're like, "You need to focus." Like how do you brand this? How do you and there's a lot of arguments, and you can watch, countless Instagram reels from people who will tell you, you know, figure out what your thing is, dedicate your life to it, be better than everybody else at that thing, and that's how you succeed. But I would push back and say, what do you mean by succeed? You know, like I I I would agree with those coaches that I could be making more money than I am currently making if I followed a formula that was better for marketing a specific, aspect of who I am. But do I think that I would be happier? Do I think I would end my days feeling like I'm a broad, expansive expression of my humanity? Probably not. And that's a pretty costly, trade-off.
Yes. Yeah, huge. I love this concept of success. What is success? Because for me, I also had a huge breakthrough around my perception of it when, as I mentioned, I was a clothing designer for almost 10 years. And back then, my idea of success was kind of like just keep going bigger and wider and scaling and making more money and just, getting my clothes in boutiques all over the world and being on magazines. And I thought that that was what you're supposed to do in order to succeed. But I got to a point on my journey that it was time to scale to the next phase, and I realized that scaling was going to compromise some of my values in my business and in my work and in my artistry. And I chose to pause. And in that process, it took me almost 2 years to sort of unwind the path or kind of like stop doing what I was doing. It took me quite some time because I was so integrated in it. And my idea of the success was sort of like, man, I guess I haven't succeeded, or I'm sort of failing because I'm giving up, or, I could go bigger. But really on a deep cellular level, I could feel that it was just not aligned, and that the path going forward of bigger, better, more was just it created constriction within me. And then once I finally was able to get to this place of accepting that, no, this is actually the most important thing that I can do, I actually started to see the success that I created in that time. And now I look back and I go, wow, I got to make clothes for a living in Southern California in a time where, eco fashion was just booming and the Burning Man culture was thriving. I made so many people like just feel so excited about their clothing in the festival world. And a lot of that stuff is still out in the world. And so my definition of success has drastically changed. And I'm so grateful because if I would have just tried to push because I'm like trying to succeed or stick with that thing. Just like as you said, the coaches say, just keep sticking at it. But I'm not going to do that if it's going to compromise my happiness. And since then, I've been able to actually find all these other ways to express my art and my passion and my service to the world in a different facet.
Hmm. Oh
I'll just
man,
pause there. It's a lot.
there's the 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 definition of success, and even the kind of, as I said it earlier about like I could have made more money. I realized that even that has a story attached to it and a narrative that isn't even true. Like I the I chose early in my career to choose freedom over maximizing my income. But in doing that, I got to pursue avenues and got known to be a certain type of creative person that I was then recruited to be brought in as a co-founder of a startup that was well funded and ended up being by far the most money I've ever made, was because I was an outside the box doing my own thing person. And there's no way I would have had that opportunity if I would have been trying to follow the script that I was told was the most lucrative. Now, if I could never have strategized that, so it's a hard way to, like, I'm not giving a game plan, but my experience has been that pursuing a personal fulfillment, uh, creates a value that is really attractive and valuable to others. If they say, "How can we bring some of this kind of, beyond the bottom line value into a workplace or into a pursuit?"
Mhm. Yeah.
There was another thing that I remember, uh, I remember seeing a video from the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and he was talking about, um, some experience with evicting some people in order to maximize his funds, and in the video, he was laughing at how pathetic these people were that he was evicting, and their excuses and their story and how sad it was. But he wasn't saying, "Oh, poor them." He was, like, laughing that they thought that they could appeal to his heartstrings, and I remember just, like, my jaw kind of dropping and being like, "Wow, this is being presented, and people are watching this as an example of how to succeed." And this feels like a spiritual poverty that I would never want for myself or anyone I care about. But like
Mhm.
redefining like what success is, I think is really important.
Huge, and I feel like I keep hearing over and over and over again these stories of these people that are having these huge spiritual awakenings or aha moments, realizations that they, this basically the hero's journey where they're on this path to climb the corporate ladder, to make as much money as possible. And then they get to the top and then they realize they're actually really unhappy, even though they have all this money, but they're in this life that just is not fulfilling. And then they have some kind of big breakthrough or they like they hit their down point where they're like, in the lower part of the hero's journey circle. And then they have some kind of big insight and realization and aha and see that this is not the way. I have heard this story over and over and over again of so many people that are recognizing that it's not about just trying to get to the top. It is really about how do we cultivate happiness every day? How do we make the most out of each moment? How do we get to find what our unique offering is in the world and get to share it and find a pathway to do that that can actually generate income? Isn't that like the
It is.
dream, right? It is such a beautiful quest to be on and to be in the curiosity of. And sometimes some people do find that one thing. And so I really want to honor those people that do find their passion, that are like driving it home, bringing it through, really cultivated, committed. And it's like this analogy I heard one time on an article. Forgive me, I can't quote the person. It was so long ago. But the analogy is a woodpecker versus the hummingbird. And there's people that are like the woodpecker that stay so committed and they just find that one thing and they just peck away at it and they make their life and their living and everything committed to that. And then there's people that are more like hummingbirds and they go around and they pollinate different flowers and they're moving around and they're exploring different pathways of their purpose. They're, sharing their gifts in a multitude of ways. When I read that, I felt my whole nervous system just soften. And I was able to just go like, oh, I can actually be a hummingbird. I don't have to try to be something else. I don't have to be the woodpecker. Bless the woodpeckers and the people that are doing that. And
Mhm.
also to give some breath and some room to be able to accept the people that are more like hummingbirds.
Yeah. I remember vividly in high school, I was dating a woman and was picking her up one time and ended up being in a conversation with her mom. And her mom compared me to her brother, who is at one point he'd been a concert pianist, and then he was a painter, and then he was a hitchhiked around the country. And and she described this person who followed their passions with this reverence and awe of this like beautiful way of living. And I'd never heard that path with anything but a description of flaky, kind of immature, and so to hear to want to be compared to it and to reframe it as a legitimate and maybe beautiful way to live was really impacted the rest of my life. I'm like, oh, it's not doesn't necessarily mean I'm failing if I'm not on a linear progressive path of ladder climbing, you know?
Mhm. I, I'm feeling our former co-host Janus and how he would pop in with a quote. He was so good at that. And so I actually have a quote. Um, Emily Wapnick, I just looked this up. Multi-passionate people aren't scattered, they are woven. How about
Mm.
that? And then Elizabeth Gilbert says, don't feel bad for being someone who is into a lot of things. The world needs people who are fascinated by everything.
Yeah, I mean, really, like, the meaning of life, if you can find yourself fascinated by as many things as possible, that sounds like winning.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know. I know. And I think it really does take a willingness to stay curious and to try on different things, to really go beyond what you think you're able to do. And we've talked about this before around perception of self. Oh, I'm not a good artist, or I'm not a dancer, or I can't write, or I'm not this, so I just am going to put myself in that box and just live that way. But when we can break through that and start to stay curious, you never know what might come out. And I've heard of some of these older people in their 80s becoming novelists in their 80s. You just never know the next phase of who you might become. And it has to come from that place of staying curious and be willing to try something different. And then this kind of comes back to one of our last episodes around using art as a way to transform and to heal, but to try on something different and new to help to unlock the if there's a stuckness, I have found is so powerful. There was a time in my life where I really did feel stuck. I wasn't sure which way to go. I could feel something wasn't working. I was a little like just anxious about what was happening in my life, and I didn't know what the next phase of my life was. I could feel something was needing to change. And that was kind of like what I had talked about that time where I was ending my career of being a clothing designer and stepping into this next part of becoming a event producer and an author. And there's a lot of different things that came through there. But to try on being an MC was something I had never done. So I started going to some speaker trainings. I never thought about being a speaker, but something was like, you gotta just shake it up and do something different. So I started doing these speaker trainings like Toastmasters and public speaking training, and it helped unlock something for me that I couldn't see before that. And it took that courage and it took that willingness to just gonna go like, okay, what is the next phase of my creative expression? What is the next part of my life journey and my work in the world? And how can I continue to share the unique gifts that I have and that are yet to be discovered with the world in a way that is going to make a positive difference? And then that's what led me to the next part of my offering, which was a 3-year running community speaker series event, which was just amazing. And you were a part of it at certain times. And yeah, I feel like it was such an important thing for me to get to experience.
I've realized that lately some of my powerful teachers in this practice have been children. My bio son Asher, who's 6, and then I spent yesterday with a friend's daughter who's 3, and noticing when my mind so quickly fell into a path of what was supposed to happen, and watching them have real clarity on the way that things are going to happen. Whether that was, taking water from this pitcher and pouring it into this glass, and my narrative going, it's going to spill, it's going to make a mess, and be like, what if I just follow this thing? What if I clean it up when we're done? What if I just like let go of all these voices in my head that think they know the way the story is supposed to happen? And it's been really a powerful awareness of how quickly I get attached to an outcome, which then limits me on what's possible.
Yes, children are the best teachers. They can bring up all the things that we need to see. Yeah, and they're really amazing at being able to not be good at something and still do it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like how often do you see a little kid under 7 that is like, I'm not a good artist. I don't want to color. They just color. They just do it because it's like inherent. And how many adults do we know? They're like, oh, I can't color. Not a good artist. I'm not going to draw.
Yeah.
But it's like, how do we let that childlike spirit, that place of innocence, and knowing that whatever we're going to do doesn't have to be perfect, and that fear of failure is just non-existent for the most part. I mean, with most children, they're just gonna like they're gonna climb on the highest part of the playground because they're not thinking like, oh God, what if I fall and I probably shouldn't do it because I gotta, they just do it.
Mhm. Yeah, there's I th this is bringing me full circle to the idea of being a lifestyle artist and social media, and I think what I realized is that I struggle to find examples of people online who are simply living inspiring lives. There's plenty of people who are packaging the rephrased lessons of Tony Robbins, or they're kind of quoting things and like it's packaging perspectives, um, but the person who is simply living their best life and sharing their parenting, sharing their their creativity, not because they're the best painter in the world, but because they're like, "Look, I painted today." And I feel like that's the role modeling. That's what I hoped that social media would. I want influencers that are excited like children, people who are just demonstrating these multi-passioned lives. And so if that's you, please share your Instagram handle with us. And if you follow people, let us know. I do want to steer my attention to people who are role modeling that.
Mm-hmm. You are. Just saying.
Well,
Just
and that's
saying.
part of this whole thing of like I really went from a shift of being like I'm not doing a good job of being an influencer like I could have been, like I was well positioned to be like no, I'm not failing at what I was told I should do. I'm succeeding at what I've always wanted to do. I'm
Mm.
being what I this is what I want. So be that in the world. Like, cool. That actually feels much better
Yeah.
than feeling like I'm failing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's something really powerful about being able to see each day as a success and to release some of that pressure around that idea of just, I could do more, 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 get. To really actually look at your life and where you're at right now, where we're at right now, what a blessing it is to be in our prime, this wonderful age, this time that we're in on the planet, to be able to actually have the privileges that we do. What a gift. What a gift. And to recognize the privileges that we have to be able to express ourselves and to get to explore these different pathways of our passions and purpose. It truly is privilege. And to not take that for granted. And I feel like when we are hard on ourselves, or when we are saying we should do more, or we're not doing enough, or all of these negative thought loops, then that actually is not even recognizing the privilege that we have. And to be in that kind of place of reverence is very powerful.
Yeah, I feel like
Yeah.
this is returning to some of the core practices and beliefs of my life, of gratitude and that, our minds are so hardwired through evolution to be critical, to focus on what's not working, and so that finding a way to practice appreciation, gratitude, recognizing the privilege of your choices and your freedoms and your creativity and celebrating all of it as opposed to trying to figure out what parts of it are not enough. It's like, oh, it's a
Um,
the exact that's like I spend time every morning trying to remember who I want to be, like the kind of person I want to be. Because if I can lead a day as someone who is kind, patient, and connecting, then at the end of the day, I don't have to make an evaluation like, did I do enough? It's not about what I did, it's about who I was. So if I can be that person, even if my day is not traditionally impactful in the world, it doesn't matter. I'm still going to be that person. And so, like, and I think that's what gives the freedom to then follow these multi-passion places. Like my goal is not to make a painting that sells for $1 million. My goal is to be someone who is authentic and listens to their muse and is kind. Well, in that case, I might end up the day with a painting, and that's the win.
yes.
Ah,
And you know what? Not everyone will resonate with the way that we do life, and that's okay. And the hope is that for those of you listening out there, do resonate with this and do actively work towards living your best life in these simple ways of just being in the acceptance of who you are and who we are every day. And so, yeah, we love hearing from you guys out there. Just kind of like plant another little seed. It's really, really beautiful to receive messages from people out there who have been listening to this podcast, as this is one of our multi-passioned expressions. The Stay Sparked podcast is really a part of our unique offerings in the world. We are here simply in service to spread those sparks, and the reciprocity that we get is messages from you guys out there. So if you resonate with this and you're like, fuck yes, or even if you have a contrasting belief or anything else, feel free to let us know. You can get on the Stay Sparked Instagram. You can also get on email and send us an email. Always love hearing from you out there, from where this is landing for you and how this is an experience of your own life and how you are a multi-passionate person.
I realize as you're speaking that I think that this project is a demonstration of what we're talking about. We do not have a goal. We don't have metrics of downloads or revenue. Like our goal, and which we realign to before every broadcast, is to try to uh, channel wisdom, to try to facilitate sparks, to try to allow ourselves to speak things that will connect people. And so yeah, a single message of really appreciated what you guys said, or I think you guys missed this point. It's kind of that's the equivalent of of a startup going public for us. Like, yeah, it worked.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and, I think that you're right, there is this sort of interwoven consideration around the why. And I know for me, this is from the heart. This is an offering from the heart. And we're not trying to get something. And oftentimes these days, there's just so many advertisements and people trying to sell you things. And I love being able to just like let the wellspring come through, let the inspiration that I feel so blessed to have access to, and the wellspring of what comes through our conversation to get to share it is such a gift. So yes, thank you all for listening out there. And I think we will probably wrap it up with some closing sparks on that note.
Sounds good.
Would you got a closing spark for us
Let's see.
around the multi-passioned path?
I think something that you said recently that kind of sparked me, which is whether this is your path or not, or whether you may know somebody who has a path that is hard for you to accept, or you realize you're passing judgment. This is really a process of embracing authenticity and embracing whatever comes through us. And I think that the more that we can um, be aware of the constrictions that we put on our inspiration, the more we can try to relieve it, and the more that we become a channel of energy, of collective unconscious, of divinity, whatever you believe in. I think that you access something bigger than yourself when, as you remove the whatever it is that is constricting that flow. And part of that constriction is the judgment. This is not the way it should happen, or this is not productive, or this is not financially wise. It's like, well, what if I let go of that and just let it through? What could happen? And I think that authenticity is a level of success that is, I think, more important than anything else.
Yes. So good. Yeah, I get this vision of a cork, like pulling out the cork. Like, how do we suppress inspiration and then like release it? I think that that is such a powerful thing to be able to check in with ourselves when we don't do something that is fueling some inspiration or passion because we think that we should be something else, or I shouldn't do something that is actually gonna bring me joy because I'm not an artist, for example. I think that there's something really powerful about that. Of course, having mindfulness around how we balance our work, play, and everything that we do, but allowing inspiration to flow through each day is so vital for good life, in my opinion. And so, yeah, I think that's my closing spark is to allow those little um, bubbles of inspiration to come through, whether or not is an aligned to making money or your career or what you're supposed to do. But the inspiration can fuel so much.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, I although it's not the intention of this broadcast, there's a possibility that the things that you and I do might have benefits to others, and there are things that we do for commercial reasons. So, what are some of the ways that
Mhm.
people can find you, and some of the ways that you are available for people?
Yeah. Well, this is a big part of where I get to work with people. I love working with people one-on-one, in person and virtually. I do also groups where I help people to unstuck themselves and really mind, body, spirit. So physically, I love working with people doing somatic body work, craniosacral energy work. And then I do a lot of mindset work with the Power Affirmation Journal and the inspiration cards, helping people to reprogram limiting beliefs or those places that we get stuck. And really, my joy is getting to help people to live their best lives and to kind of hold up a mirror and reflect back to people where they're able to see their own selves. And so you can find my work on poweraffirmation.com. That is where my tools for transformation are. And then there's a variety of other insights into me with my artistry. I love building earth mandalas. I lead intentional clothing exchanges, women's circles, ceremony work, space alchemy. I transform spaces. So I do a lot, and you can see a lot of that on my website. So feel free to check it out there, and the link is in the show notes.
Incredible. What a gift you are to the world.
Oh, thank
Um,
you.
I sometimes struggle with how I describe, my offerings. Because as I said, like my experience with life coaches, for example, has uh, that's not what I provide to people. I'm not helping people to figure out how to maximize their revenue or make their business succeed. But I do really enjoy helping people figure out uh, what matters to them and listen to their authenticity and to find a sustainable joy in simply being who you really are. And so I like to help people with that through a number of ways, most of which you can find on lifestudent.com. I do want to mention that if you are curious in how a lifestyle artist shows up in the world, follow me on Instagram or my YouTube channel. My newsletter will give you updates. And this June 8th in San Diego, I am hosting a full day men's group that I'm really excited about. Did one recently in Santa Barbara, and do one in San Diego, June 8th. So let me know if you or someone you love might benefit from dropping in with strong, gentle, masculine seekers. And it's been really beneficial to me, and I welcome the others in that path.
Amazing. So needed. So powerful. Love that you're doing that. Well, in the spirit of our closing, love to close us out with an affirmation that is inspired by today's conversation. Yes? All
Please.
right. So I would love to invite us to center ourselves in whatever way feels good. Just breathing into your heart. And just internally or out loud affirming that I love and accept the multifaceted being that I am. I love and accept the multifaceted being that I am. I love and accept the multifaceted being that I am. I am a multi-passioned person. I am a multi-passioned person. I am a multi-passioned person. And then lastly, I feel inspired to just continue to affirm, and you can change it however you want, but I am a healer. I am an artist. I am a visionary. I'm a teacher. I'm a light. I'm a lighthouse. I'm a friend. I am successful. I am embodied. I'm a dancer. I'm a muse. Keep going in your own mind, in your own way, affirming all of the roles that you are. I am, I am, I am, I am, I am. I am a love ambassador. I am radiant. I am alive. I am so grateful. Thank you so much for this conversation, John Halcyon. Thank you
I
all
love
for
you. Thank
listening. I
you.
love you so much.
Stay spark, friends.
Find us on Instagram at Stay Sparked and leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcast.
Thanks so much for helping us spread these sparks.